From Mr. Beast's YouTube channel, Chandler, hello, let's take a look at his golf swing. In his setup, you'll notice that his shoulders are aligned quite significantly to the left and is relative to his feet line. Oftentimes with people who slice it, this is going to be an issue as they are compensating for their slice and playing for it. However, there's something else in Chandler's swing that's definitely going to help improve his slice. So stay tuned to find out what that is. I could definitely tell him to shift his alignment into a more square position, but I really don't think that that is what needs to happen in order for him to be able to improve his slice. Because the more I get Chandler to aim further to the right, the more scared he is of hitting it to the right. So he's going to compensate and get that club to work too far out to in or cut across the golf ball too much. So let's take a look at what is actually happening in the golf swing that is producing a slice for Chandler. It's really important to take note here of Chandler's hip motion and how his hands travel. So Chandler doesn't get a whole lot of hip rotation early in from his setup to his takeaway. And what happens there is that his hands will actually work quite far out. So if we draw a line on his hands there, somewhere in this position here, you'll notice that his hands actually work outside of the line rather than coming inside of the line. And that's mainly due to his lack of hip rotation. So if we could just add in a little bit more hip rotation for Chandler, it would have a feeling of his right hip pocket getting around his body and almost replacing where his belt buckle would be at the setup to the top of his backswing. And now this will allow his hands to work more behind him so that his arm structure at the top of his backswing would look something closer to there. So we're trying to get his arms to work more behind him. And this is important because when he transitions into the downswing, it seems to me that his left arm just works too far out from his chest. So if you think the more his left arm is pinned across his chest, the more that club head and the club shaft would be behind him. When someone is hitting a slice, their club shaft is working too far out in front of them. And because the arms are connected to the club, then if we get the arms to work more inside, then the club will work more inside as well. So for Chandler to be able to improve his club path, then we need to improve his hand path or how his lead arm works in the transition of the downswing. Because once he gets into impact, you'll notice that the club head works too far out in this direction here, and then when he hits the golf ball, it's going to exit too far to the left. So his club path is going to work in that fashion there. What I'd really like to see in this position here is I'd want to see this club head a lot more behind him. So it's going to be a focus of when the hips rotate and how they're opening up in the downswing and also in the backswing. So if we take it back to the top of the backswing and just take note of his hip rotation from here, you'll notice that he really doesn't get a lot of motion to his hips at the top of his backswing. And to me, that arm structure looks quite vertical. But because the arms are connected to the chest and the chest can only rotate if the hips rotate, then if we add in more hip rotation for Chandler, that means his chest will open up more, and that means his hands will get further behind him in this direction here, which would help Chandler a lot in my opinion, because then the club would work a lot further in this way in transition rather than how it works at the moment where it works too far out, and he'll start to see that big curve from left to right. Overall, Chandler has a decent swing, but I really do think there are a couple things that he can work on with his hip rotation that will allow him to square up his alignment eventually and start to hit the golf ball a lot straighter.